Yeah.
So the podcast got cut off because it couldn't handle the memory couldn't handle the stories that Adam was giving. So my computer blew up, and I had to go through a whole reboot to get it back to where it is. So back to where we were. You gave
Mhm.
a number of stories about broken back, second broken back car crash,
Mhm.
rehabilitation through the wazoo, and we got to a point where I was just so curious of all those things that you
Yeah.
went through. You came to a point where you're like, all right, I'm gonna carry on in sales, and I
Mhm.
love sales. Sales gave me a life. It gave me a
Mhm.
career.
Mhm.
But why the fuck did you get into
Well,
it?
okay, so there's probably two components. One, a lot of people that obviously have a large influence in this global arena talk about how they fell into sales and all of that stuff. I call bullshit on that, because people that generally grow up knowing that they could control a room or command respect or be able to be the intermediary to make deals happen by showing this company what this company needs to see and how they need to see it, they know that from an early age. So I knew that from probably, I don't know if I was 7 or 8. We lived in a small South Australian country town on like a surf coast, way out of the city. And
Would
all of my friends had a lot more money than what we did. And I felt really like, not embarrassed, but like I wish I could do more for my little brother and sister. So this is what I
Mhm.
divide. So you tell me if I just fell into this years later or not, or I already had this plan or vision. We lived like near this really nice beach, and I saw like lots of like cool stones and like quartz and like seashells and all of that on the beach all of the time. So I came up with this
Mhm.
plan where I was going to collect these stones and shells and then walk around and door knock to the retirees and ask them for money. And I got the money. So I
Yeah.
was selling like, yeah, legit, legit. I was selling like beach shells and stones to get money so that my brother and sister could buy like lollies and sweets from the shops.
Wow. You
Yeah.
are a very, very good brother. Very, very good brother. I remember my cousin, right? He was from, well, he actually moved to the Netherlands, and he always, at an early age, I think it was around that time too, 6 or 7 years old, he came with a box, and he
Mm.
opened this box and had all these chocolates and sweets and stuff. And I was like, oh, give me one. And he said, no, you have to get me £2. And I was like, you motherfucker, you're my cousin. And he was brutal about it, absolutely
Uh,
brutal. And it just so happened to be that, 30 years later, I met him for the first time. His younger brother died of cancer. My younger
mm,
brother died about 14 years ago now, too. So we kind of, after my brother passed away, we kind of lost touch. And
mm,
his mum and dad live in, no, dad and stepmom live in Queensland in Australia. They moved from
mm,
Queensland. So over there, he went to the Netherlands. And we came back and we had lunch about 7 or 8 weeks ago, and come to find out, I became the salesman selling
mm,
6, 7 figure deals, and he was like, "I always knew you had it in you, and I always knew you'd do it. I just never expected." And he ended up, that booths in the airport with the traffic controller, airport controller, and he ended up being one of those guys because he was like
mm,
planes, and I don't know if you remember Microsoft Flight Simulator.
mm,
How cool that game was when you
mm,
learn how to
mm.
fly a plane. But I kind of lost the track of why I said that. But what was I
Uh,
gonna say? Oh, no, it's because you knew you were a seller. Okay, so that's why.
mm,
And then
mm,
what I always used to hear was, you're gonna be a lawyer when you grow up. You're gonna be a
mm,
lawyer. I just so happen to have to pay a lot of lawyers to grow
mm,
up
mm,
to get me through
mm,
court. In
mm,
terms of knowing you do have it at an early age, and I never put my finger on it until you just mentioned it now. When
mm,
I came, when I was released from prison and I came here, I worked in security, and then I went to a financial sales training uh, events company. And the first time I got on the phone and was in a room of people, they were like, "Whoa, are you serious? That's the first time you've ever made a cold call?" And I
Mhm,
was serious. Yeah, it was. But I'd watched a
mm,
lot of movies, and it just became, it was something natural, and I did love the attention, and I
mhm,
loved everything about it.
mm,
And again, that helped me like literally climb through, like
mm,
rapidly climb through certain jobs that I went through. Top seller at my second one 3 times. Then I was on my CEO's yacht in Cannes. Got pictures of that.
mm.
Fucking amazing. And then building my own business. It's been a journey I would never ever ever ask to have it in any other way. But
Yeah, man.
along that right was a lot of failures, and that's another major thing on the show that like I like to highlight, because people need to know it's okay to fail, and if you can fail enough, I call it accelerated learning. You
Mhm,
get to find out those 100 spot on ways to make things work, to create those efficiencies, that effectiveness that really drives a business's growth. So for
mhm,
you, were there any like profound failures or impacting failures, learning experiences that you went through that
mm,
you could really walk us through and say, look, I went through this and this is how I
mm,
came on the other side because of this.
mm.
You got anything like that?
Oh man, it's probably more layered than that. It's probably because my mum and dad broke up when I was 3. Um, I basically fought for approval, even though he already told me that I was the best. But like, so to give context, right? So we lived like a long way from being able to see him, and that was obviously a deliberate ploy by my mother. But I'm not going to get into that. But
Mm.
that's unfortunately that's what bitter people do. But anyway, so
My
I
wife's doing it
basically,
right now, so I
hey,
know.
yeah,
My wife, ex-wife, is doing it right now, so I know very well.
unfortunately,
Mm.
but Shane, we will live through the world where a lot of this stuff is going to basically play out and change. I think within the next 2 years, where they will be outlawed. We
Yeah.
have to live there because there has to be repercussion for that types of toxic behavior. But anyway, that's
Yeah.
another conversation. That's just how I see the world. I live with
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
prosperity timeline in mind, and I think about like how things should get better, because if we don't live there, then we stay trapped. However,
Right.
with stemming back to answer your question, fighting for my father's approval, even though he'd already told me that I was good, kind of led to my acknowledgement very early that if I was really good at lots of sports, the school would pay for me to go to the city and I could see my dad. So that
Okay.
also then, yeah, man. So I played sports that I didn't even like just so I could go and see him. Yeah. And I you're looking shocked, man.
No,
But I
I'm
think
telling you the truth, mate. I'm telling you the truth. I'm like, this is a fucking twin right now, because my whole life I was, even still now, my dad says like I'm 37 years old and I'm still like trying to get approval because I've gone through so much of a
yeah,
roller
man.
coaster. Even till this day, I'm just like, I've got to do this to prove to him. So
Yeah,
he he loves me more. He'll shut up.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
hang on,
man.
right?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah. So I think,
I appreciate it and I can empathize with it. So carry on though.
yeah, I think that taught me that even if I'd broken a sales record at Fitness First, or
Mm,
I'd written a business case at EPAC Salary Solutions, which was a bank, and then I got promoted from there after 2 weeks instead of getting fired because, etc. Like they could have. Um,
mm,
I was still, even every single time that someone said that I'd achieved X, Y, Z, I was still fighting for that approval that was never going to come because I'd already achieved. I think that then taught me to just keep trying to push what's possible or impossible, I guess. And then that just became ingrained. And then I just kept doing that. So yeah, that led me to a whole heap of sales records, but I think that learning also stemmed me to a lot of cheat codes within that, because realistically, coming up through the boiler room stuff,
mm-hmm.
I kind of also thought, like with what I learned at looking at all of those proposals and reverting them back into making them into sales copy, I thought, well, what if there was an easier way? But what was I
Mhm.
really doing? I was actually replacing the marketing function, right?
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah.
and then that just became a whole thing. And then that just became really obvious to me because everywhere I tried it, it worked tenfold. And I was like, this is just too easy. Like, why is no one else doing this?
Mhm.
But I guess that even if once I was doing those things, it was never enough because I'd still fight for approval, even if I'd broken a record or I've got this contract in record time or whatever that was. I just kept fighting to find new ways to do stuff. It made me question everything. And then, is there an easier way to dice everything? I guess that's where it kind of led me.
Right, that's very interesting. So, two questions on that.
Mm.
Would you say you're fulfilled now? After all of this, would you say you're fulfilled with what you're doing, where all of these experiences have led you? Are you
Yeah,
currently fulfilled as a result of
that's
this
a that's a
journey
good
today?
that's a really good question. I would say that for anyone that has followed me for a long time, they would know that I've been pretty outspoken about all of these pillars of what I believed within the closed circuit should be operated since like 2017. But
Mhm.
let's go through that just quickly. Initially, people said I was crazy because there's no way that you could just break down business and it's that simple. Or I could call out like all of these business functions. I'm like, yeah, but if it doesn't matter who does these pieces, if we do these pieces here, we get this result. Um,
Yep.
Whereas now, probably in the last 6 months, other people are talking about some of the components that I've been talking about for probably more than 5 years. So am I fulfilled now? I find it fun, engaging, enticing that other people are talking about some of those things now and it's becoming more mainstream. But for
Mhm.
me, I just thought it was always obvious, where I guess that if that wasn't those people's lenses, they didn't see that. But fulfillment, yeah, I think there's still a lot more things that we can do. And I'm turning a lot of my methodologies and tried and true practices into another project, which I
Mhm.
won't talk about just yet, but that will, yeah, that'll change a whole things again. But yeah, fulfill for right now, yes, because people are seeing the simplicity in what I'm saying now after all this time. But you're
Mhm.
always going to get people that will come up against you, as you know, and say
Yeah.
things are complicated when they're not because they don't have that level of awareness. But that's a them problem, not a you problem.
I wish I knew. I wish I figured that out a lot sooner, maybe, because there were so many times when I explained something to one of like
Yeah.
either uh, someone in the network or a PR, and I'm trying to say, well, just look at it like this, and they're like, oh, like they're
Mm.
taking a shit to think about it,
Yeah, man.
and it never came to fruition. And then literally in the past year, I've gone through the biggest like upside down transformation of my life in terms of
Mm.
a bomb that came my way, and I was able to channel it into good energy. And I'll
Mm.
tell you why I asked that question on fulfillment. And it's the main reason is because I was coached on it in
Mm.
2021. And as a result of that, we had an incredible inside 6 weeks. Our first year in business, we did 300K, like
Mhm.
fucking low, and that's service based business. So that was really good
Mm.
for us. And then it came to a point where this year, through the podcast, I met with a guy, John Welch, his name is. I don't know if you know him. He runs a cold calling agency too. He articulated the true meaning of being, spiritual awareness, being present. I've never heard it in such a clear fashion.
Mhm.
And this only like 4 or 5 weeks ago. I was always knew about it. I was always aware of it. I've always been led towards a journey of spirituality and just mindfulness and peacefulness. And until I
Mhm.
met him and he like put it in his spin, mate, the past few weeks have been mind blowing for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm the CEO of fucking Rolls Royce tomorrow. I'm
Mhm.
gonna be in the House of Lords, like people that are part of the House of Lords,
Mhm.
like billionaires. That I was in a fucking 6x9 cell, and people were the words I was called me in that
Mm. Mm.
unit to where I am now. all of it again from sales. And then now where I'm at, complete pieces, that fulfillment part. And a lot of people
Mhm.
don't understand that you can make as much money as you want, but until you're fulfilled, that
Mhm.
shit don't mean nothing.
Mhm.
Absolutely nothing. So look, we are cracking this bitch open, right? We've got another 15 minutes, and then we're gonna have to have another episode
Yeah.
that kind of like dovetail into the second thing. But
Yeah.
10 years from now, okay, I've mentioned this
Yeah.
to you before. We actually had a
Mm.
little preview about this question,
And
and some people kind of it does challenge them, right?
mhm.
Some the typical question was, what would you have told yourself 10 years ago? But everybody asked that question.
Mm.
What would you tell your own self? I don't give a shit about that. I want to know how far can
Mm.
you push your mind? How big
Mm.
is Adam's imagination? So
Mm.
I think we were a couple hours before. So it's 9:08 right now, Monday, the 11th of December. I'm speaking to you. I'm
Mm.
in the process of building £1 million annual recurring revenue business that's at 90% net profit. That's going to exit in 2 to 3 years as an enormous powerhouse for a B2B marketplace on podcasts.
Mhm.
In 10 years, I could say I'll have my Rolls Royce Ghost, be in a
Mhm.
fucking massive house.
Mm.
I'll be single still, but I will have a lot more kids, a lot of baby mamas, and and life will just be very, very enjoyable, right? That's
Uh-huh.
me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
listen, I'm looking over at the pool, and it overlooks into either the river or the beach, and life is good, right?
Mhm.
That's me in 10 years. Walk me through your imagination and what this very date in time. What time is it for you
Mm.
over there, very quickly now in Australia?
It is 8:30 or almost 7:45
All
a.m.
right, so 7:45, 2033. Tell me what you see.
So I think that the largest component for me will be that a lot of the stuff that I was seen to have been crazy about will be proven right and be validated as the way. So from there, that will give me a really unique positioning to have built probably multiple ventures to on that line. So from there, I will probably have a renovated cottage at the top of Croatia. I'll
We
have
okay.
my I'll have my surf shack where my brother and I grew up because he's a builder and we'll do some really fancy stuff over there, which no one knows about those secret spots that are still relatively cheap to purchase. But one day you'll get an invite, Shane, if you can surf, or you're willing to learn. Um, I think that yeah, a lot of the stuff that I would have that I'm talking about of all of these business pieces that I would have not only built that into a go-to-market tool, but I would have also built that into a strategic technology. And at that point, people will then be asking how I did it.
Okay, we'll expand on that when we come to part two. All right, 'cause I know you're just itching to get some more. I know you're itching
I know.
for it. So let's end it on a high note. Right, a lot of this show, and the reason I do this is I want people to learn, empathize, appreciate, understand, and identify opportunity. But more importantly, I want them to be able to execute.
Mm,
So, without revealing the crown
mm,
jewels,
mm.
where do you tell somebody in this audience, this little gem that's really like drawn into you, what do you tell them to do today to realize a result tomorrow?
Ooh, that's depending on where you want me to take that. I think the biggest part of what I tell people is here we go. This is your package, your story. Who cares? How do you get to them? If you can't do those things, it doesn't matter how good your product is, or your idea is, or your concept is, or wherever you're pulling money to fund that vision is. You've got no chance of selling it. So if you can't sell it, you then are held over a barrel hiring someone that can. So my biggest advice to all of these companies and anyone is tell your story, tell your truth, know how to package it. Who cares?
That's fucking beautiful. So where
Mm.
can people get these golden, deep, dark secrets
Mm.
online? Do you have a podcast? Do you have a newsletter? Do you have social
Yeah,
media handles? And if you
yeah,
don't,
man.
it's the
Um,
XP are gonna make them for you.
yeah, man. So if you've liked what I've said, if you've liked some of the stuff I've said around business and some of the clarity around how I would merge more of sales and marketing functions together to make sales job easier.
Mhm.
If you like how I also call out that if you don't have customer success working properly, it doesn't matter how good your go-to-market is. A lot of that is
Yeah.
available on my LinkedIn. Basically now, every time that I go and see a company and I see the same problem, you'll see a repetitive post because I've literally rewritten exactly what I've just found again. So that is a very fast track into how I see the into how I see the world. To answer your question, I've got a podcast. It's called BBB Better Business Building by my name.
Okay.
It's on Spotify, Apple. Had some unbelievable ratings this Spotify rap, which I still can't get my head around. I went from like the top 30% down to the top 5.
Wow.
But that
Congratulations.
podcast is literally built on telling other people's stories to the people that should care. So most of the people that I talk to are thought leaders and salespeople or marketing people. But I just really wanted to build a podcast that bridged the gap between B2B. So that's what I did. Yeah. And anything else
And
I've got, yeah, a lot of my stuff written out in long form on Medium, which gets a fair amount of
okay.
traction there. But I've got a newsletter as well on my LinkedIn. And a lot of my story about the injuries recovery and how I built that into the journey of getting to all those head of sales or head of marketing roles is
Hmm.
documented on my LinkedIn under a newsletter called Creating Closed Circuit Selling.
So all of those will be available on this podcast link. And in terms of it, mine go up on YouTube. Then you'll have about 160 different posts going out throughout the month with clips from this, which is what we're about. But look, guys, I hope you go and find out more about Adam and what he's doing. And especially after this, there'll be more episodes. I can
Mhm.
confidently say that. But until next time, Adam, we hope to see you again. And I hope you have an amazing day, mate.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate the effort that we had to get this happening, and I didn't even mind getting up ultra early to jump online. No, I loved it. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Stay on for a minute.